we're talking about remote workspace panel discussion, which is on the topic ramping up remote work in the cloud. We're talking about VPN and bandwidth capacity to support remote work, identity and access management capability, building a preventive framework to reduce and mitigate the likelihood of business disruption, implementing the most immediate cloud workspace tools, considering the availability of critical cloud infrastructure, leveraging workspace technology, and also defining policies around remote work. Well, we have with us our panelists, our esteemed panelist, Prashant Agarwal, VP Cloud Technology, Standard Chartered Bank. Well, Prashant is responsible for working with the SCB leadership to conceptualize and implement cloud strategy for the bank. He's somebody who ensures digital strategy and enterprise transformations for global clients while playing a leading role in driving revenues and increasing the market presence significantly. Prashant's expertise lies in leading enterprise scale digital transformation programs across business, product, and technology dimensions. Also, we have with us Rajesh Ganesan, the Vice President, ManageEngine. Well, Rajesh is the Vice President of Product at ManageEngine, the IT management division of Zoho Corporation. He's somebody who's a part of the leadership team overseeing product strategy and direction for the overall suite. He's somebody who has been with Zoho Corp for over 20 years, developing software products in various domains, including telecommunication, network management, and IT security. We also have with us Yoginder S. Grewal, the CTO of Hindustan Coca-Cola Beverages. Well, a global digital business and information technology leader with demonstrated history of facilitating business growth through strategy design and execution and technology development in digital business and analytics that has helped enhance market share, increase sales, and improved operational efficiency and effectiveness that has created a great customer experience. While Yoginder brings together cross-functional teams and delivers complex projects across countries. We also have with us Golok Kumar Simli, the CTO, Passport Seva Program, Ministry of External Affairs. While Golok has 26 years of rich experience in ICT projects, out of which 13 years in government domain, especially in the area of strategic leadership, policy formulation, e-governance, digital transformation, and program project management as well. He's somebody who specializes in GPR, BPR, core ICT infrastructure, mission mode projects under National E-Governance Plan of India, government data centers, emerging technologies, mobility and cloud technology, data analytics, data and information security. This entire panel discussion is going to be moderated by Amit Verma, the Executive Director, DBS Bank. Well, Amit Verma, being the Executive Director with the DBS Bank India, and he acts also as the Group Business Head and Head of Technology with the Tech and Ops Group, which is. Over a career spanning 22 plus years, Amit has positively influenced the financial services industry as technology pioneer, business leader, organizational builder, innovator, and digital transformation catalyst leading technology functions across US, Europe, and India. So ladies and gentlemen, now it is time to call our esteemed panel on your screen. Over to you. And thank you so much for joining us. Requesting our panel to kindly put their video and unmute themselves. Thank you.
Thanks, Bhavna.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bhavna.
Pleasure. Thank you so much. And welcome to the World Cloud Show, everyone.
Thank you very much, Bhavna.
So I believe we can just have Amit, who's going to be the moderator of the session, to kindly join us. Okay, I believe he's just going to be joining us in a moment. Till then, if I could, Rajesh, Yoginder, and Golok. Golok, we had an opportunity of interacting with you in the last time as well, so thank you for that. Yoginder and Rajesh as well, thank you so much. I had the opportunity of interacting with you as well. So I would love to first hear from you, Rajesh, about your opening statement on this topic, which is a very interesting topic, because being in the workspace, remote workspace is the new norm right now. So if you could have an opening statement of yours, Rajesh, and then we can go on to Yoginder and likewise to Golok. Over to you.
Absolutely, yeah. We had this warm-up session, right, with the panelists. So we bring a multiple perspective into this particular topic of enabling remote work, because I remember January, February of this year, we were planning for 2020 like any other year, right? So a lot of plans, a lot of vision ahead. But this COVID came and completely put the situation upside down. So there was just one priority for every organization, every business around the world, which is how to figure out a way to continue doing your work and earn your daily wage, right? That's been, this enabling remote work has been a global challenge, not just for us as a company and for customers around the world. So I'll be very happy to share some of the perspective that I have in terms of what should be the priority on finding the right tools and deploy to make remote work possible. That would be my opening statement.
Sure. Yogendra, if you could have an opening statement from you as well.
Yeah, so I strongly believe in that, when we talk about COVID and these scenarios, so these are, extreme crisis scenarios. So it's always, management says that you have to prepare in advance. So when crisis happens, then it's not time to plan. That is the time to, execute whatever you have done. And the another aspect is one size doesn't fit all. Like it cannot be 100% cloud or it cannot be 100% on. It has to be a hybrid solution. And the most important thing, it depends on the organization, maturity curve. How advanced are they on their digital journey or, technology framework? So it's, I think, based on each organization, their priorities, their business model, and how much appetite they have to invest or agree on the certain risk where they are willing to take. So that would be my experience.
Sure. Thank you so much, Golok. To you, please, if you can have an opening statement.
Thanks
from you.
once again, Bhavna, and let me also at the outset thanks Trescon for inviting me to the event. My opening statement would be, while we are marching ahead towards WFH, while we are marching ahead towards new business model, new business opportunities, the major area to be looked after is the government regulations, government norms, government policy issues, right? And while I say so, when I say that the government regulations, government rules, what are the existing teeth available with us today? How do we take care of when we work from a remote environment or WFH kind of environment? How do you ensure, safety, health of our own employees? How do we also ensure the business continuity? How do we also ensure that the sensitive data, the critical operations being accessed remotely follows the rules of law? So that should be my opening statement, Bhavna.
Sure. Also, Amit has just joined us, our moderator. Amit, we're just getting the opening statements from all our panelists. Prashant is yet to give his opening statement. So Amit, if you may allow, if I can just get the opening statement from Prashant as well.
Please, thanks for that, Bhavna. Actually, I could see everybody speaking, but contribute to the other link.
No worries,
so apologies
it's so
all.
good to have you.
I had some technical issues there.
No worries. So Prashant, if you can also have an opening statement from you, please. Prashant, if you'd like to unmute yourself, if your network's supporting you, if you can just unmute yourself and please say the opening statement. Otherwise, I'll leave it to Amit to take it forward, but we'd love to have an opening statement from you as well. Prashant, I believe we're still facing some issue. It was perfect when we did the dry run. Unfortunately, we are unable to hear you. I believe that's the same thing with all the panelists. Can you hear Prashant?
No, I think we have lost him. We cannot see him on the screen.
Okay. We'll get that sorted. Don't worry. But we do have our moderator, Amit. Thank you so much. I'll leave it up to you, and I'll get the team to connect with Prashant on the same.
Thanks for that, Bhavna. Thanks for stepping in, while I was having technical issues. Great. So, if I may, Yogendra, let me start with you, right? And talk about the leading topic of the time, which has been around COVID and how it has impacted remote work. So, Yogendra, if you wouldn't mind sharing your views, right, of how COVID has impacted, remote work in your firm, and how does that overall fit in to your cloud enablement journey from an end-to-end perspective? Please, Yogendra.
Yeah. So, Amit, actually, that's what I was just sharing in my opening statement. So, I think all companies, they need to have this crisis management in place before the crisis happens. And that also depends on the business segment you are in, how much appetite you have to invest, and how much risk you are willing to take. Having said that, my experience over, multiple organizations are simplicity is the most important. You can get the best of technology, best of solutions, but if it is not simple enough, you never know whether your BCP will work or not. And so that's simplicity is the key here. And when it comes to the remote, it also depends on the which kind of solutions you have. Nowadays, how much mix you have in organization, whether it is 20% legacy, 80% latest solutions, or 20/80, it could be anywhere around. So if all the new solutions, the remote thing is a least of an issue. But with the legacy application, you have that is I think bigger portion of the problem. The another thing is that maturity. Where do we stand as an organization in the maturity curve of the transformation? And
Sure.
this is end to end. And it looks like people, it looks process, it is technology. Because I have seen multiple examples in my various companies. That you have a good people, but you don't have technology. You have a great technology, but you don't have the right people. So it has the combination. So it's not like the easy fit, but it is a doable. It is simple. As long as you keep things simple, absolutely, it is really value. The another thing what I feel very strongly is we have too many buzzwords nowadays. This digital, that, and all that stuff. So how and when we do reality check. Okay, now all these are new, correct? Nobody has 15 years experience in this new technologies. And so when you have these solutions, or when you design these solutions, you have a partner who also is a learning, your team is also learning. And then, so somehow that balance is very important. Sometimes
Sure.
you experience partner is learning at your cost. Sometimes you don't get a value because neither you or team, or your team or partner knows the right way how to do things. And it's a learning by doing in some cases. So I would say it is based on the situation of an organization, based on the maturity curve, what technologies they have, and how far, whether they want to, they are happy with 99.9 or 99.99, or 90% users should be enabled with the remote. So I think all solutions are in place, and it's just what you need, and everything is available. So that's, I think, a short note from my side.
Yeah, thanks for that overview there, Yogendra. Moving on to Golok, if I may. Golok, from your perspective, right, having worked in the and currently looking and focusing from a government perspective, what would you see, right, would be the key governance and regulatory constructs that the government is looking to put in place that would help remote work? Please, from your side, Golok.
Very good morning, Amit. So you're welcome to the debate. And to start with, like I said in my opening remarks, saying that when it comes to government, if you see beyond March, especially, government came out with a policy saying that, especially to the IT, ITS sectors, BPO sectors, we allowed WFH till July 31st. And then looking into the situation, the same is now being extended till December 31st. And while I am saying so, if you see the DOT side, because most of the remote access, there is a communication channel is linked to it. The DOT by itself, they relax all the required norms to access remotely, how to support, facilitate WFH again till 31st December 2020. And I personally foresee this may again get extended to some level. That is one point I would like to put on the government regulation side. The second part is, when we are walking onto this kind of an environment, new normal, WFH, remote access, in my view, there are three things we must look into so that tomorrow you don't get into a legal issue. The first and foremost thing is to be looked into is what is your structured WFH policy? Have you formulated a structured WFH policy? If not, please do that. The second thing to be noted here is, do you really understand what is your business continuity required during this kind of a pandemic or this kind of a new normal?
Sure.
If not, again, we need to do that. That define your business continuity plan properly and absolutely, right? And while doing so, we must ensure that the client data is safe and secure, right? The third very important thing, which I am doing, in fact, we also must segregate between our mission critical work and the routine work. I also must segregate between my sovereign data, which government we say sovereign data, and non-sovereign data. I must know. I would also like to put saying that I must also classify my data when I'm looking towards the regulation. What is my fiduciary data? What is my public data? What is my configurable data? I must know that. The second
Sure.
very important thing is how my data is spread across. Is it on premises? Is it over the cloud? Right? Now, once you are doing this part of it, then the second very important point to note that whether it is a public sector or a private sector, the moment you allow your mission critical operations in a WFH environment, that means you as an organization, you are already playing a role of intermediaries under the IT Act 2000. And to say so, if I specifically point that particular clause under the IT Act 2000, refer please section 43A. Right? Now, if we are doing that, if you are already getting into this kind of an intermediary's role in the WFH workman, whether it is Amit, whether it is Gulok, whether it is Prashant, whether it is Joginder, any one of us, we are duty bound to see that we comply with not only with the existing regulation and compliances, but also under Indian cyber laws, whatever with the regulation rules available with us. At the last, I would also like to say that while the government is working on a targeted manner towards a data protection and privacy law, which is on the offing, I personally feel that this kind of a new normal, this kind of a pandemic, it could have been better if we would have a specific law, cyber law, to deal with this kind of a scenario. If we would have a specific privacy law to deal with this kind of a scenario. And that is why, as I said, the new law is coming, the data protection and privacy law is in the offing. The last thing, Amit, I would like to point that if you look the Indian IT industry as a whole, we are talking about more than almost 190 billion of technology industry, right? Which probably employ a workforce of around 4.5 million. Now, if that is the magnitude and volume we are talking about, to move the majority of the workforce toward a remote environment, you just think of the kind of regulatory approvals you need from different government departments.
Sure.
That is one side. The other side is also the consent from the client. And that is why I have always advocated that a good data governance model today is mandatory and absolute requirement. And probably that is what I will speak about on my second round of how do you frame a good data governance model. So that's how it is, Amit. Yeah.
That's great. Thanks for the insights, there, Golok. The point that you mentioned on data governance, I think, is very relevant. The fact that, how do you manage your data, right? What sort of legal, structural controls and checks have you got? What sort of compliance checks have you got? So maybe from that perspective, Rajesh, right, you could share your views around, what are the tools, technologies, in this constrained model, right, that somebody's getting to from remote work, to remote work. Have you looked at from your perspective, Rajesh, please?
Yeah. Thank you, Amit. Golok mentioned some really, really important and interesting points, and I'll like to take on from there, right? So a couple of important themes for all the businesses, organizations around. So number one, he said this work from home setup itself was initially temporary, right? So government allowed it till July or now December. I would say companies should now make a call, right? So remote work is here to stay. It is not any temporary arrangement, right? So that is number one. The second point that Golok mentioned was extremely interesting, right? So you have to segregate work into two things, right? So one is your routine work and the other is mission critical work, depending on what kind of data you have access to, right? If you are a network administrator, or if you are a database administrator, you are typically working on mission critical things, right? So things going down, you are fixing, right? So things like that. So when Golok gave all these recommendations, suggestions, my strong feeling is without good tools, without good products, technology solutions in place, it is very, very difficult to achieve the model that he was proposing, right? So in my mind, it is good for companies to proactively look at two technologies particularly. First is how do you enable secure remote access to information, right? So granted, right? So you have email already on the cloud. For communication and collaboration, you have tools like Zoom and Microsoft Teams and Zoom meeting and tools like that. But what about mission critical work, right? Where you need access directly to a database. Or if you are the CFO, you could have your reports only in the office. Or if you're a designer working on a very secret design, that is only inside a protected network inside your company, right? So these are also very important. Enabling access to these pieces of information is going to be very, very critical, right? You cannot assume people have access to email, people can talk to each other, and it's only temporary, right? You have to think in terms of deploying technology that would allow easy access to all information without compromising security or violating any of the laws. So that is the first technology. The second technology you have to really, really understand is the impact of the devices that people use today to do their official work, right? Because we are talking about remote work, working from home. So the distinction between the personal and corporate devices have completely gone away. Your kids take your device and do their homework, and sometimes you borrow their device and quickly access or close a sales deal, right? So this is where it becomes very important to deploy technology, deploy products to make sure the devices, right? I don't even say devices anymore. These are endpoints, right? Because it could be your mobile device, laptop, even your browser with all its add-ons is one endpoint on its own. So the second technology that companies should invest on would be endpoint management and security. So secure remote access to all information and securing and managing all your endpoints should be the tool and technology focus area for organizations.
Great. Thanks for those insights there, Rajesh, and totally resonate with you, in terms of the new normal, right? Being very different from the previous one, where, to your point, right, the distinction between personal devices and office devices is broadening or actually decreasing because of the fact of that you're moving to VDI-based models and stuff like that, right? So maybe Prashant, you could chime in there, right? Prashant, from your experiences and your exposure, right, what have you seen as being some of the key change management focus areas, right?
Sure.
In terms of going from the previous work in office model to the new remote work model, please.
Sure. Hey Amit, I hope I'm audible this time.
Yes, you are indeed. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. I think I could not have articulated it better. I think Rajesh did a wonderful narration of how organizations today are looking at it. I would probably like, maybe before picking on anything else, I would like to talk about a very high level simple model of how we can think about this whole scenario and the situation. So let's forget COVID for a moment, right? I see we can kind of, you can say, classify your bucket or organization into four buckets or four bunch, right? So one is the kind of organizations where we cannot imagine remote work. We can't even imagine. Say somebody working in a barista coffee shop, across the counter, he cannot do it remotely, right? You can't even imagine. Then say other kind of organizations where we are working strictly inside a office network, right? Some kind of R&D work, some kind of a hardcore technology work, right? We basically need to go to office. We need to use the office equipment, and then only we can deliver that, right? So in these kind of companies, organizations still provide access to simple tools like you have access to your emails, you can still answer your phone calls. So basically you're doing some kind of a knowledge work, but you cannot do that on an ongoing basis. Probably you can manage for a couple of days, right? But you cannot just work remotely in that kind of setups. The third kind of setups is where organization, whatever is accessible to you inside the office, right? Everything is accessible to you outside the office also. You can access everything from the home. You have access to your work management tools, you have access to your emails, phone calls, everything is working for you basically. But the style of working has not changed. There is no change in your style, so you still focus on synchronous communication, if I use that term. As an organization, your focus is still that. You still have ongoing meetings, the same time, the same slot, everyone joins and you discuss and try to wrap up the things. Then the fourth kind of organizations, I would call them like the remote organizations of which have kind of tried to evolve from because of this COVID. So now the focus has completely shifted from synchronous communication to asynchronous communication, right, between people. Now you have the tools and access to everything that you have in the office. You focus on asynchronous communication, which means your meetings that were on your calendar are reducing now, right? People focus more on written communication. People focus more on asynchronous mode of communication. Whenever you are online, you can communicate. This kind of organizations require a high level of trust for working, right? Why? Because you're not managing or micromanaging your people. You're not looking at them every single point in time. You will give them a lot of flexibility. You give them a lot of openness. You trust them to deliver things, whatever is expected out of them, right? And in these kind of organizations, we also see that now organizations have started to invest more heavily into remote work. Now we see people posting amazing pictures while working from home. They have their own home office setups, right? Organizations have started to invest in them. So these are the fourth kind of organizations where we are having a very different mindset of asynchronous meetings or asynchronous communication. This is broadly the, you can say, the broadly the ecosystem now looks like. And the race here, every organization is trying to move from, they say, the level 1 to the level 4, right? We were at level 1 or level 2, whatever. We're trying to move to level 4. Now probably in the second round I'll like to focus on what all things can we do to change this mindset from synchronous to asynchronous communication or asynchronous mode of working. And I'll talk around some of the best practices and some of the things that companies I've been observing doing around these, especially in these COVID times, for making that movement or shift.
Sure, great. Thanks for that. Right. Maybe if I go to Yoginder now, based on some of the interesting points that were raised there by Prashant. Yoginder, Prashant is talking about asynchronous versus synchronous, right? What has been your experience in relation to the impact of this asynchronous mode? Because at least in my case, I can tell you this for sure, I've certainly seen the case where there are more meetings, people are trying more harder to stay connected, which basically means that previously if they were able to get somebody's FaceTime and talk to them over a minute, right? Because they can just walk over to them because they're in the same space. Whereas now the only means of communication is something virtual, right? By email, by phone call, a video call, right? So what has been some of your experiences in that area? In this synchronous or versus asynchronous that Prashant just mentioned.
So thank Prashant for really clarifying in a simplest possible manner. So I think all the four buckets you can see in any single organization. Like if you see manufacturing plant, person has to be there. You cannot work remotely because production has to happen. Then right. Your board meetings can be remote, and then of course the I feel, and I want to share my experience again related to what I said earlier. So, like if you plan in advance and if your architecture of your whole enterprise solution in the organization, you can do anything remotely. We have SAP, Salesforce, distribution management system, transport, all these things we are able to do from home. Even including call center, any you name it, and it's we are a very big group. So I think it is all about how you plan and in advance and how you design it. You can get a solution, but if you don't design it right, because these are all integrated, correct? They talk to each other in a seamless manner in a real time. So that is the one. Second, when it comes to the meetings, I think the focus is during this period is high engagement. Whether like if I have to do it my team, I really ensure that I have one-to-one connect with my key stakeholders once in a week. I have a town hall with my whole team once in a month, and I tend to disagree on the one point that number of meetings have not decreased, because of the engagement. People know that if you are working from home, you are always available. So all slots till 9 p.m. are taken without being asked. So everything has a pros and cons. But one thing what I have understood well is that it has improved communication in a way, because when you are in person, you can see the body language, you can understand where to cut and all. Now people have started defining their problems in a better way. I have seen a lot of improvement over a period of time. And the person who is answering also, because over a period of, if you are not able to answer or keep an engagement within a few minutes, the purpose is lost. So I think it's a mix and match. One size doesn't fit all. My only advice to all the listeners is that I think basics must be right. If your basics are right, your solution design is right, and you are, the people, process, technology, they are in sync. Everything is achievable.
Great. Thanks for that insight there, Yoginder. Golok, maybe then over to you again, right? Golok, you talked about the governance framework. Maybe you could spell a bit more out in terms of what an organization can do to put a governance framework around remote work in the cloud. Please, over to you.
No, I'd love to, Amit. No, in fact, no. If you ask my personal opinion or otherwise also, no, I have always I'm a firm believer, and I have always advocated that the current and the future digital foundations or the digital transformation framework, whether it is a private organization or a public sector or government like me, must be based and supported by a good data governance model, right? Now, when I say a good data governance model, I mean I really mean that it must reflect on who is the owner of the data, who is the custodian of the data, how the data being collected are governed, right? How the data being collected are stored at rest, and how the data being collected are shared. No? Now, if this principle, if you are really able to understand, then the governance model has to be looked into a holistic way. Now, when I say holistic way, means I would like to divide into 4 quadrants. The first and foremost quadrant should be the people, right? Who is the creator of the data? Who is the consumer, right? Who is the data owner? What are the IT tools and technologies I am deploying, like Prashant said? And how the people around it, or the employees around it, or the ecosystem as a whole around it is defined on that, right? So that is the first quadrant on a data governance model. We must understand that, right? The second very important thing is your policies and rules. That I personally say rules of engagement. What is your rules of engagement, right? And when I say rules of engagement, means what are your standard definition in terms of rules of engagement? In terms of your secondary use of data, what is your rules of engagement? What is your data quality management process available with you? How are you managing the crude activities that I call crude activities, create, read, update, and delete activities? Are you really into inside your entire SDLC life cycle? And how are the rules of engagement you have defined around that? That is the second quadrant. The third quadrant, I would go for a execution model. What are your execution model? Is it a centralized model? Is it a federated model? Is it a PPP partnership model? Right? For example, I have gone into a PPP partnership model, right? And last but not the least is your tools and technologies you deploy, where you define your master data set, master data management, data quality management process, data masking, data classification, all that you do. And on top of that, at the end, at the outcome, what is that you want? What are your KPIs, key performance indicators, in terms of efficiency, in terms of efficacy, in terms of SLA metrics, and in terms of overall visibility, right? And at the last, just 1 second I'll take, saying that,
Sure.
Can you create a visibility? Can you visualize the ecosystem as a whole? Probably sitting here, I can visualize my entire ecosystem sitting here. So if you can create that visibility, whether it is a WHF environment, whether it is a on-premises environment, some of my panel members were saying, it absolutely doesn't matter. So that's how I would like to put, Amit.
Thanks for that, Golok. And you really the four quadrants that you mentioned, right? In terms of people, policy, execution, and tools, certainly seems like a great construct to put a governance model in place. So thanks for that view, Rajesh and Prashant. I know I'm just conscious. I'm looking at the watch here, so zoom in on a couple of points for both for yourselves, right? I would appreciate you just keep the answer to a minute or so. That'll be great. So Rajesh, following on from what Golok said, right? In terms of tools and technologies, do you see from a cloud perspective, if you take the data classification angle on, right? So is data private, in this case, restricted, internal, right, or confidential, or is it public data, right? Would you see that being a determinant of what sort of cloud models do you go for in terms of remote work?
Absolutely. I totally agree with you, Amit. And once again, I'll Golok makes some very practical and useful points, right? I'll again borrow from that, the quadrant, right?
Go for it.
About data governance, right? Because that's the primary challenge for everybody. If I have to keep this within 2 minutes, because this is a topic we cannot do justice for 2 minutes. So data governance is very important, but what we need to also understand is the visualization he talks about. So today, so far the assumption has been the entire kingdom was inside a fortress, right? So we had remote work, we had people traveling, but if I should throw a number, 90% of the work, people were inside the office. Now the kingdom has spread into multiple houses, huts, into the forests, into the deserts, right? So this is the visualization that is very, very important, right? So a couple of models you need to really look at, right? When especially talking about data governance and visualization. Now with everything, your people, your important people, your assets moving out of the fortress. So far, once you gained access into the fortress, you had implicit trust with people, what they could access, what they could do, right? Now they are all in their own huts. So every time they need some access, they need some action, you cannot have any assumption of any trust. You ask them to authenticate. That is a model that companies have to change in terms of how do they govern their organization. The second point again is once you have all your critical people and assets inside the fortress, you could have one army to protect all of them, right? Sure. But once they spread out into their own huts, you cannot have army taking care of them. You should inculcate and give them the ability to self-defend, self-manage, and also self-heal, right? So these would be possible, the two models that I talked about, right? Where when you have to spread governance across and also security across, you just have to go with tools, deploying tools and technologies that would give companies the ability to do that. So I just want the listeners to think, visualize in this form.
Thanks for that. So thanks for that insight there, Rajesh. And as you rightly said, right, there's only so much that an organization can do in terms of
Absolutely.
providing the constructs. But then it's up to the people themselves, right? The people in the huts, the people in the houses, the people who are now distributed across varied geographies in some cases as well, right? To then make sure that they understand that the onus is on them.
Right.
To be part and to support the governance models, because only then can these governance models succeed. So very relevant point there, Rajesh. Thanks for that. Prashant, over to you, if I may, right? And finally, maybe some quick inputs from you, Prashant, in relation to the synchronous versus asynchronous model you talked about earlier, right? And what are some of the things that you are doing from your own organization perspective to adjust to this new way of working in remote working model within the cloud? Prashant, over to you.
Sure. So I see that in two pieces basically. So one is the technology bit, which I think most of the panelists have talked about, where we talk about the correct way of using authorization, authentication, identity, all of those aspects, and that is embedded into the way people use your tools and technologies, right? Then the other bit is you can say that the working norms or the way people operate on a day-to-day basis, how they conduct themselves, right? So definitely there needs to be a change in the style of working. If I'm talking referring back to Yogendra, right? So you mentioned that a lot of meetings have increased, right? Meetings have increased. You are absolutely right, because most of us are operating in the level 3. You can say organizations where we have all the tools and the information access, but the mindset change has not happened to remote style or remote ways of working, where we have not given enough importance to the asynchronous communication mode of collaboration and communication. Now, if we have to give that importance to the asynchronous mode, then first thing is we need to visualize everything that we're doing inside the organizations. Basically, a very powerful principle coming from the lean philosophy: we need to visualize our work on a day-to-day basis. We need to make sure that all of our work is transparent, visible to everyone in the organization, visible to all the team members, so that anyone can take a look at it, review it, and give us feedback, comment back to us, so that it can be incorporated and improved. Right, that's one. Secondly, the meetings that we have, right? We have to consciously take a look at what all meetings are we doing in a day, and how can we reduce these meetings, for which meetings we can really depend on asynchronous communication, right? Which can be completely removed from a calendar, right? Which meetings do not really require a face-to-face catch-up with people, right? Where we can just focus more on our notes, right? And then I think the very important point is, whenever you're doing like synchronous communication, synchronous meeting, it's very important to do effective meetings, right? Use your time well, plan your meetings well, have an agenda up front, have a facilitator decided, make sure that the right outcome is achieved at the end of the meeting. Make sure you are sending out meeting notes, right? Some of the basic hygiene practices are you are covering them. These are some of the, you can say, the core tenets. However, I can go on and talk about a lot of other things, right? But these are some of the basic hygiene things which every organization should really focus and do in this COVID times.
Thanks for that insight, Prashant. And you rightly said, it's about time management and making sure that ties in very well to this remote work scenario. So thanks for those perspectives, so all of yourselves, gentlemen. Before I wind up and summarize, Bhavna, are there any questions for us? I know, and then I'll wrap this up very quickly for the panel. Okay, so I'm hearing a no there. So again, right, to summarize, right, I think I'm really thankful to all the panelists there for the detailed insights and perspectives. Right from the fact that in this remote working mode in the cloud, right, it's very important to keep things simple, right? As Yogendra rightly pointed out, right? Ensure that the work from home model that the team is going with is in match with the maturity of the organization in relation to process, people, and technology. Because if the maturity is not in sync with their operating model, then that's a recipe for disaster. So Yogendra, thanks for sharing those great insights earlier on. Then going on to the key points that Golok mentioned around the entire arena of making sure that the business continuity model is there, making sure that the right distinction and focus between mission critical and routine is maintained, ensuring that the right classification of the data is there. Going then to the point where you very rightly put and gave us a great framework around ensuring that we are legally compliant on the one end by putting right governance structures based on people, right, policies, technology, right, also the tools that we have there, right, an execution model, and measured by KPIs. is put in place. Then Rajesh, to your point, right, where it is very key for us to make sure that we are looking at self-enablement, right? Because and empowering the team members to make sure that they are able to meet the governance mandate that every organization has in this remote work scenario is very important. Certainly to the points where Prashant very well put that, for us to succeed in this asynchronous mode, it is one of the key success factors is to ensure how do we operate in an efficient manner, right? Whether it is planning meetings, whether it is looking at visualizing work, right? And getting higher levels of transparency across in an automated manner, right? So it doesn't get on to every individual to give more transparency and visibility. I think great inputs from all of you gentlemen. I'm really thankful for your insights. And Bhavna, thanks a lot for holding the fort for us. Thank you all. Have a great rest of the day. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks everyone. Thanks.
Thank you everyone.
Great to connect. Have a great day.
Same here.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you, Golok, Rajesh, Prashant, Amit, everyone who's joined us. It's been an incredible panel discussion. Thank you for your time once again.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Thank you, Bhavna.